I don't believe in memorizing. I think it's a huge mistake. And I used to memorize everything. When I was at Toastmasters and when I was competing, every word, every comma, every breath, every step on the stage, I knew everything ahead of time. And basically all that turns you into is a performer. And speaking is more effective when it has a little bit of a conversational tone, when you feel like the person speaking to you is real, authentic, and not hiding too much from you. It doesn't feel great to be sold to, just the same way it doesn't feel great to be performed to, if that makes sense. So if you start memorizing your script, then you're trapping yourself. Because the second you're in memorizing mode, then you're thinking back to your script when you're in front of your audience or the people you're expressing yourself to. So you've trapped yourself in this situation where you can't be present, you can't flow, you can't really improvise and be spontaneous. So there's a level of memorization where in theory you could come off as natural and spontaneous, but it is an absolutely insane amount of work. And I gave the same version of a speech, I think probably 100 times. And I was still, I don't think, coming off as authentic, Mm-hmm. So our strategy is very different. Our strategy is to practice in a way where you're able to express the same idea, concept, insight spontaneously in 10 different ways. So that when you show up in the moment, you've already expressed it enough times in enough different ways that you know what you're talking about. You know what works, you know what doesn't, but it's still a new take. So the way you do that is you play with time constraints. So if you have a 7-minute talk, you put on a 3-minute timer and you force yourself to get from A to Z in 3 minutes. Then you change the time. Then you bring it to 5 minutes. Then you bring it to 1 minute. Then you bring it to 7 minutes. Then you bring it to 2 minutes, 4 minutes. You want to play with time to force your brain to take different perspectives as you're expressing the same things. And in doing so, one, you get to the root of what you actually want to say. Because if you have to give a 7-minute speech in 1 minute, well, there's no other way than get rid of all of the fluff and just say what actually matters. So it really clarifies in your mind what's important, and it makes it very easy to remember. And then when you expand it again, you're able to add in all of the details in one way or another.
How do you apply this in a subject matter where maybe you don't have a lot of expertise or competency? Because I can see applying this on something I'm very familiar with, but suppose I'm doing research and I'm presenting something that's maybe dealing with a lot of semantic type memory, facts, dates, things like that, like a very, I guess, data-driven work presentation where I'm spouting off facts and figures and things like that. How do you avoid intense memorization?
Yeah. Well, imagine you're giving a data-driven presentation, right? There's still a point to it. There's still a main intention. We simplify speaking to a bow and an arrow, and most people don't. And the arrow's your message. The arrow is the one thing that matters most to your audience. And usually at work, it means the project's on track, or it means we need more headcount, we need more staff, something's delayed. It's usually a high level message that if that's not the message, then whatever you're communicating probably isn't as important. So usually there's one important arrow that we're trying to get to. Everything else is the bow, and the bow is the data, It's the examples, it's the research, it's all the things that are showing and illustrating and making you feel and believe that your arrow, that your message matters. So the stronger your bow, the more you're able to really draw back and have your arrow stick. So if your bow is filled with data, then that's fine. But I don't believe in a world where the numbers alone are going to be let me put it differently. I don't believe in a world where you have to remember the numbers offhand, right? So you can put one number per slide to show different statistics, like 73% of the population has speaking anxiety, right? I don't need to remember that number. I can just put 73 on a slide and know that that is part of my pillar around anxiety. I think what's more important is that people try to remember all the details. They try to memorize all the words. They really want to get everything. But at the end of the day, people don't remember anything. They might remember the main idea, the message, or the feeling of something's off, something's wrong, everything's fine, everything's on track. Project X is going amazing. Project Y is delayed, right? There's a communication issue here. We have to address that. There's really one thing that people take away, and the data supports it. So our belief is, how do you communicate that one thing in a really memorable way? And data might be a part of your section. And if that's the case, put it on the slides. You don't need to remember it. This number will trigger. What's more important than you knowing the data is you being able to tell the story around it. That if you didn't have any of the numbers, can you still have a narrative that will illustrate the main message you're trying to share?